Hello everyone, this is Kyla. Today I would like to just show my work and get it out there um, to let people know of my art process and even for me to discover my own art process because I'm really amateurish and I really would just like to get things just for people to see things so that I can say that I've done something and that I'm not so um, stuck in my art journey as I would think I am. Because I made a prior video to this about motivation and feeling stuck and not doing my work, and I'm still not drawing, and I want to draw. And I can have all the excuses I want, but in the end, there shouldn't be an excuse because I spent all that time reading instead of drawing because I like reading just as much. But you know what? I just have to do it, and this is exactly why this video is here, because I've ended up just doing it for the sake of doing it, not for the sake of feeling good or whatever, just to do it. I wasn't even motivated, but I ended up creating something, which is good. And here I'm just trying to draw a girl, and I didn't really have an idea in mind. Oh, sorry, I sound a bit nasally because my nose is blocked and I'm a bit sick, so sorry for that. But continuing continuing on, I just felt that I needed to do it, and so I'm keeping it loose. I'm keeping it natural to what I generally create. I'm not trying to uh, strive for beautiful composition or values or have the perfect line art because this this isn't what this video is about for me, and it's not me about talking about motivation or like how to get your stuff out there or whatever, but it's just, I guess, to document my process, have for others to just see how other artists might do their work because that is so important, and that's exactly how I do my art. I look at other artists and I like to try what they do. So I was the reason for this though was to just figure out how I color things and render things because I usually don't. I usually do line art and I like to have a smooth gradient and have everything graphic looking, but I wanted to try a style similar to uh, uh, kind of a child's illustration. In a child's illustration, you might see a lot of texture being used, a lot of colors, and it has a simple look to them. But if you want to make it more complicated, then it gets really cool because then they would add more colored line art, they would add more gradients and speckles or that bit of glow in there. And I've always admired that. So I tried to channel my inner child book illustratorness into this work, and I wasn't really sure how to go about it. So I just kind of tried to do whatever came naturally, what made sense to me. Right now I'm just filling in all the base colors, even though they're not all the colors that I would be using. And I find that if you start with good base colors, you produce artwork that is probably is better. It isn't always that way for artists because they have such a good eye for color, but I'm not very good at just choosing colors straight away or choosing or just knowing the direction of how colors should look. I always have to have a general mood that I have chosen and try to have colors complement the other colors I've chosen. So I'm trying to complement this green because the green is more of the main piece, even though it's very muted and not that uh it's not as strong as the pink or blue per se, but I'm trying to make the green more um I'm trying to make the other colors work with the green rather than the green working with the other colors because of how much green there is and how much of a big blob of green that is. It has to work. So now I'm trying to figure out the shading of this green because I don't want to go too dark on it by using a black line art, or I don't want to go too light on the green to where it just starts looking like fake grass. Um, I'm trying to keep it more neutral, but as long as it balances with the other colors, then that's what I wanted. And I'm trying to line art with a darker green, a darkish bluish green, and the line art isn't perfect, but it has this comic book style to it, which I also like, and I think that a lot of life comes from having texture in your work. Whereas before I used to really like smooth things, but I'm trying to go a different direction and solely using textured brushes. So now I'm just trying to fix up the jacket. The line that I'm using for the pants, I made them slightly darker than the base color that I've chosen because it it makes the artwork seem brighter or more or different than what you would normally see, because you would normally see a darker line art on top of a base color. So I wanted to try to experiment with just not doing that. It wasn't a lot to do because it was just a line in the middle of the pants, but I thought it really pushed my artwork just to be slightly better than it was a few seconds ago. And now, to make the green dot look so flat, I tried to add a warmer color on top of it. So not just any darker color for the shading, but a warmer color for the shading, because it's a balancing act of warm and cool in terms of color theory or lighting. I'm not so well learned in that aspect, but I've been um, that's what I found, and that's what seems to work somewhat. So I kept going at that, and now I'm just trying to do a bit of routine there again, just to try to add texture or to make the pants more three-dimensional. So far, I like the simplistic coloring style. So it's not super matte looking, but it's not so shaded and textural that it's going into realism. Here I'm just doing very, very subtle shades and trying to add a bit of dots and speckles in there, again, just to add a bit of texture. in this work I used more soft brushes and soft textured brushes because I think they don't make things look too bold or striking. They have a subtlety about them that seem to work for a lot of different styles. Yeah, again with the blush. Usually I use a non-textured soft brush for the blushes and shades, but I found that it always looked too formulate formulated or stiff looking. So I'm just trying not to do that. I'm also trying not to do that with hair. I chose a dark layer for the hair because to me it's easier um, working dark to light and then using more extreme shading. So here I was trying to go do the highlights, but the values are off for the hair and it looks very muted. So I tried for the highlights, I just made the hair have a stronger gradient. I made the highlights more greenish in color, more turquoisey than navy. And the highlights, I don't I don't ever use white. Well, I use white as little as possible because I believe if you get into the habit of using white and then more black, then it makes the artwork more muddy and it takes away the vibrancy because you can have things that are pretty close to white, but they're off white. So you're not looking at a solely white thing and wondering why it the the highlight doesn't pop as much as you would think it does just because it's white. So say if I'm doing the highlight now and I use a pink highlight, which I don't, but if I use a slightly pink pinkish whitish highlight, it probably pop more than using just a pure white for doing the highlights because of the contrast of the pink and blue is, in my opinion, um, stands out more than a contrast of white and blue. But this is just how I think about shading and color. And it's not for everyone, but that's just what I'm thinking. So as you can see, I didn't do much for the base of the ponytails because I knew that I was just going to go over them anyway with stray hairs and extend them and make it look like they're shortening as well. I'm just using various lights and darks in the streaks of the hair and trying to layer them so they don't seem that flat. I'm also trying to create more of a streaked look in the hair, and hair isn't so smooth and clean cut as I've had before, so I'm trying to just have more stray hairs dangle and pop out a bit from the head. I ended up really liking how the hair turned out. I really, really liked just in general the colors and the shading and texture. And I really wasn't expecting it to look this way at all. But I think that it was pretty nice. So instead of using black for liner, I like to use crazy colors like a red or a dark blue or maybe a purple. It doesn't really matter for me as long as it complements the other colors in the piece. But like again, I try to avoid using pure black or pure white because it tends to change the quality of the work. And the highlight, like I'm not using pure white again. Uh, yes, it did look very red. So that's why I tried to pair it with the blue, and it did look interesting. But I think a blue underliner didn't work that well. But I didn't stop to change it because, again, it's just about moving on and to test out things and to show that you've done something. Now I'm trying to add a bit more shading and depth to her nose. And her eyebrows are really light, not too strong. They're a brown when I could have made them blue, but I decided that it worked better if she didn't have blue eyebrows. Because who do you see that paints their eyebrows blue? Like, it's totally possible because no one has red eyelashes, but, it's just an art thing, I suppose. So here I'm trying to, because I use warm colors, now I'm trying to use a slightly cooler red for the shadow. I am not a big fan of how I made the jacket. I think that it looks very clumsy because just of how thick the line art is in the jacket compared to how compared to the line art in the rest of the body. So it doesn't look very consistent. It looks so now I'm trying to thin the line art a bit more, but I think it's too dark compared to what I've had going on. Even though it isn't a pure black and a darker green, it's always a balancing act of things that are too dark and too light. I think now it's more about understanding how to be consistent with the textures because I knew how crazy it could get if you add too many textures and how um, different textures don't look cohesive together because some textures are big, some are small. So I think that I've just used too many textures on the jacket. I really didn't know what I was doing with the jacket, so I just did what I felt like, and not necessarily what looked good, just what happened. So so now I'm just kind of finishing off and I'm trying to fix the pant a bit. But thank you for watching, and I hope that you'll continue to watch my videos, and I'd love for you to give me feedback, so make sure you comment below